Zambians mourn the loss of his former president Edgar Lungu.
Part of climate change adaptation is really important, as climate change is biting us harder and harder, both in Germany and South Africa.
And Germany and South Africa's growing partnership in the fight against climate change highlighted. But first up, the news with Chandugo Ligege and our sports headlines with Figile Lingwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Qatar has presented a draft peace proposal to Congo and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels after months of mediation in Doha, and the two sides will consult their leaders before resuming talks. Doha and Washington have been trying to broker a peace deal that would put an end to a conflict with roots in the Rwandan genocide more than 3 decades ago. Joeli Hodi reports.
Qatar successfully brokered a surprise meeting in March between Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame. Both leaders called for a ceasefire after the meeting. In April, Congo and M23 issued statements pledging to work towards peace, though sources in both camps expressed patience over the pace of talks in Doha. Sources from both the Congolese government and the M23 camps said some members of the delegation had left Doha but cast doubt on whether there had been significant progress in the talks so far.
Tens of thousands of secondary school students have sat for state exams in rebel-held Eastern Congo this week, a complicated logistical feat requiring rare cooperation between the government and M23 rebels. The insurgents seized Eastern Congo's two largest cities in an offensive earlier this year and are now trying to show they can govern. State exams administered across the Central African country for students hoping to go to university began on Monday and will continue through mid-June. While the M23 has previously said it seeks the ouster of President Felix Tshisekedi's government, the group's leader Bertrand Bisimwa told Reuters that it still recognized Kinshasa as the administrator of national exams. Ghana has expressed its support for Moroccan autonomy plan as the sole basis to settle the Western Sahara dispute within the framework of the UN. It has aligned itself with a growing number of Western, African and Arab countries that back Rabat's position on the dispute. The long-frozen conflict pits Morocco, which considered the desert territory as its own, against the Algeria-backed Polisario Front, which seeks an independent state there. Moroccan Minister Nassir Bourita said Ghana's position on the conflict was conducive to bilateral cooperation. UN Environmental Programme Residence Coordinator Nelson Mafa says there is urgent crisis of plastic pollution that needs to be addressed. Mafa was speaking during World Environment Day commemorations in South Africa's Pretoria, highlighting the staggering scale of the problem. He revealed that over 400 million tons of plastic are produced globally each year, with millions ending up in oceans and ecosystems.
Today's theme, Beat Plastic Pollution, is a stark reminder of the mounting crisis we face. Each year, over 400 million tons of plastic are produced globally, with millions of tons leaking into our oceans and ecosystems. By 2060, annual global plastic consumption is forecast to reach over 1.2 billion tons.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has thanked the U.S. for imposing more sanctions on the International Criminal Court. Netanyahu says the Trump administration is standing up for Israel against politicized judges. Washington's latest action bars for ICC judges from traveling to the U.S. and freezes their access in the country. The BBC's Anna Holigan has the details.
Two of these sanctioned judges authorised the arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister and his former Defence Chief Yoav Gallant, and two authorised an ICC investigation into alleged abuses by US troops in Afghanistan. The ICC immediately condemned the additional sanctions on top of those already applied against the court's top prosecutor Karim Khan. In a statement, it said the deplorable measures are a clear attempt to undermine the independence of an international judicial institution which operates under a mandate from 125 member states.
That is all for now. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines this hour, Khoza Mokoena is the new chairperson of the High Performance Commission at SASCOC. And Anna Tikolo has been appointed as captain of the Springbok women's side at the 2025 Rugby Africa Women's Cup in Antananarivo. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our news update and Figuleni Wati with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, on OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now, today's question on hashtag Africa Updates asks, former Zambia's President Edgar Lungu passed away yesterday in a hospital in South Africa at the age of 68. Now, we're asking, what message do you have for the Zambian people as they mourn the loss of a former President Edgar Lungu? Share your messages and your thoughts on all our social media platforms. That's on Channel Africa 1 on Instagram and X, and on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your voice notes and comments on +27 63406 9126. That's hashtag Africa Update Us. What message do you have for the people of Zambia as they mourn the loss of former President Edgar Lungu?
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Zambia's former President Edgar Lungu has died in a hospital in South Africa. Lungu ruled the country for 7 years following the death of President Michael Sata, who died in office in 2014, and the elections held in 2015. Now, the former president, who returned back to politics after his retirement when he lost elections in 2021, was being seen as a critical factor in Zambia's political landscape, despite being blocked from contesting again by the courts. Our Zambia correspondent Arthur Davis Sokopo has more.
He has not been well for some time, and at some point he was denied leaving the country by government when he wanted to seek specialized treatment abroad. Governance and human rights activist Brebna Changala recalls.
In fact, he sneaked out of the country because on 2 occasions, if not more, he was blocked from leaving the country for medical attention. He was virtually prisoner without a court order.
But after he left the country for South Africa, Lungu never returned home for about 6 months, as he remained in South Africa for treatment till his death, Thursday, 5th June 2025. His daughter, Tassila, at around midday announces the passing of his father and ex-president. His party, the Patriotic Front, gather at the headquarters as they begin their 7 days mourning, presided over by acting president Given Lubinda.
It is true. Edgar Chagwa Lungu is no more. And that mourning will take place here at the Secretariat, and it will take place in all our provincial headquarters, all our district offices, and all our constituency offices. Light fires, congregate, and mourn your beloved leader.
President of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, made a Facebook posting mourning Lungu and acknowledging that the family of Lungu had made known of the demise of the former president to government. After his defeat to leading opposition leader then, Hakainde Hichilema, Lungu retired from active politics. But about 2 years down the line, he returned to save his party, the Patriotic Front, which he claimed was being destabilized by the governing party, the United Party for National Development of Hakainde Hichilema.
Therefore, after careful
and deep reflection and wide consultation, including prayer, following naked efforts by those in power to annihilate the biggest opposition party PF is under today, the PF, using their stooges and institutions of governance, I have decided to return to active.
Mr. Changala, the governance activist, recalls.
And in the last 4 years, he has been humiliated publicly by his predecessor. At every turn that the predecessor is given a microphone, he will go for him. But strangely enough, this is a man who never responded. And when his supporters ask him to hit back, he will always say there was no need.
Lungu, who will be remembered for massive infrastructure across the country, says Brebna Changala.
The humility in this late president was so amazing. But besides that, the 7-year period that he was president, he embarked on massive infrastructure development and unprecedented development which has left a mark as his legacy.
Jackson Slavwe, an opposition leader who worked closely with Lungu in his last days, recounts.
There is a person who would give ear to every person, even when the conversation on the table was about him. He was a very humble person. There was a time in a meeting when we suggested that we should be calling each other by our first names or initials, that he was comfortable to be called ACL, but we had to refuse, and we maintained that he should be addressed as His Excellency.
While others praise Lungu, it is on record that some have called him to have run the most corrupt government in Zambia. On the streets, there is some solemn mood, and messages of condolences are coming in from across the world. Zambia has been ruled by 7 presidents, and all the past 6 are now no more. Reporting for Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I'm Arthur Davis, Scopo.
And to continue on the former Zambia's president's passing, the legacy of Edgar Lungu, we are joined by Chanoda Ngwira, a spokesperson for the Kumamawa Development Coalition and the close ally of the former president. Now, Chanoda, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's good to hear. I'm sorry that there's quite noise here, because I'm actually at the PF Secretariat where we are hosting the funeral of our former Republican president.
Now, you had a personal relationship with the late president. How was he as a person, and what does his passing mean to the people of Zambia and you as his friend and comrade?
I think I must be very honest that the loss of President Edgar Chagwa is not just a loss for Zambia. It's not just a loss for me or members of the Patriotic Front and those of the Tonsi Alliance. It is a loss for Africa, because this is a man that was loved beyond the borders of Zambia. This is a man that has left a mark. This is a man that has been mourned by almost all of the great leaders in this Africa and beyond. So indeed, the loss of President Edgar Chagwa is a big blow to most of us young people who were getting inspiration and who were, getting a lot of wisdom from him regards how we can participate in the leadership of this country.
Now, what do you consider to be the most significant achievements of President Lungu, particularly in terms of infrastructure development and social welfare programs? These have been highlighted as part of his legacy. Just take us through them very briefly.
Come again on that. Come again. I missed that.
I was just trying to find out with regards to the legacy of the late president, and in terms of, he focused particularly in infrastructure development and social welfare programs. These have been highlighted as being part of his legacy. Just take us through some of the big stories that have left quite a good impact on the people of Zambia.
I must say this, that actually when the late president, Mr. Michael Sata, died, President Edgar Lungu was very categorical, and he said, I'm going to continue with the vision of my late leader. And indeed, Michael Sata left Zambia as a construction site, and President Edgar Lungu also continued with the same. Zambia was a construction site. And if today you come to Zambia, you are going to see that wherever you throw a stone, it will land on a project that Edgar Chagwa did. Wherever you throw a stone, it is going to land on a hospital that Edgar Chagwa left. Whichever stone that you throw, it will land on a good road that Edgar Chagwa left. So indeed, this is a man, unfortunately, who has left us, but he leaves behind a legacy that I don't think anyone is going to actually match. The man just did everything. And he united the country, by the way. He really united the country. He never looked at who comes from where. He never looked at region. He never looked at creed. He never looked at how somebody looks like. But anyone who had potential, anyone that has a capability to work, he brought them close. This is a man that has left us and has left a big gap.
His administration has faced, major criticisms for the economic challenges, that the country has faced, including Zambia's defaulting on international, funding and so on, and finances, that there was a challenge there. This has been highlighted as his leadership not being the greatest. What exactly happened and what has come from this? Because there are a mixed bag of reactions.
I'll be honest with you. At the time that President Edgar Chagwa was leaving office, he told the Zambian people, re-elect me because I want to finish or rather complete the agenda of uplifting the people of Zambia's lives. He said, let me continue because I know where I'm coming from. I've been president for 7 years and I know where I am heading to. I must be quick here to say, in his term, especially around 2018, 2019, somewhere there, 2020, the country faced an economic downturn. The country faced this issue of coronavirus. But President Edgar Lungu showed, the stance that indeed he's a leader, that indeed he can, subvert the Zambian people, that indeed he can stand tall and still guide, the economy of this country. So I must say that it is until after the change of government that today Zambia is, I can say, pathetic in terms of economic indicators. It is as a result of the good leadership of Edgar Chagwa that left the country. That's why today as a country we are suffering. That is why today as a country we are faced with expensive things. It is very difficult to survive. Because the man that wanted to continue with the legacy of President Michael Sata of, saving this country's economy was actually elected out of office. And today, he's dead.
Now, how do you, in terms of his leadership style, the late president, he has been accused of fostering political thuggery and harassing opposition supporters, I beg your pardon. How do you think, or do you believe that his leadership style shaped the party's conduct? And also, when he tried to return to politics in 2023, he was blocked by the Constitutional Court, ruling that he had served 2 terms. How do you think that this ruling impacted his political legacy as well?
I must be honest with you. There is no regime, even right there in South Africa. There is no political party that is devoid of, misbehavior or indiscipline by political cadres. But that must not be, put on the head of a particular leader at that particular time. Yes, indeed. President Edgar Chagwa eligibility case was quashed by the Constitutional Court. Actually, they ruled against their own ruling. Because we understand somewhere in 2020, there was the same matter before the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court said Edgar Chagwa was eligible. But because of the politics of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, he brought back the case. And they said he is not eligible. And definitely, he's a human being. That affected him, definitely. And also the persecution that he went through as a former head of state. He never enjoyed retirement. He never enjoyed his statesmanship. He never enjoyed freedom. He couldn't even jog in the streets of Lusaka. It's like the way it is there, where probably former President Zuma is stopped from even just interacting with the people. How would he be, and all that? So yes, indeed, I must say that has contributed heavily to the demise of President Edgar Chagwa, because this is a man that would be in court every day escorting his wife. This is a man that would be in court every day escorting his own children that are going through these court cases. And on top of that, this is a man that used to be denied, permission to go and seek for medical attention from that country, that is South Africa. So that indeed has affected him.
Now, what is the country planning in terms of his memorial and funeral?
I must be very categorical here that as the Patriotic Front and the acting president, Honorable Given Lubinda, as we speak, as I said, that I'm now at the Secretariat, where people have gathered. I think you can see people have gathered, and the morning, they are there. There they are. So we are in a meeting right now discussing and looking at how best Edgar Chagwa can be mourned. So yes, indeed, he is a former head of state, and he is a statesman, and obviously there will be national mourning, and the state is going to actually take over. But as Patriotic Front, we must be very categorical that we are going to mourn President Edgar Chagwa. We are going to have a separate procession, and that nobody can stop us. We will have our mourning house as we plan, where we are going to mourn our departed leader. Because we are not going to be hypocrites that are going to join those with their tears saying Edgar Lungu was good, Edgar Lungu was this, Edgar Lungu was this. When he was alive, they treated him badly. When he was alive, they did not treat Edgar Chagwa the way they want to pretend treating him now. So yes, as a party, there are deliberations, like I said, to decide where our funeral home is going to be to mourn and celebrate the life of our departed leader.
Chanoda, before I let you go, just we presume that you have been engaging with his family and his wife and his children. What is I can imagine what they're going through currently.
Yeah, it's quite devastating, especially for former First Lady, Madam Esther Lungu. It's quite devastating, obviously, for his children as well. It's quite devastating for those that had an opportunity, to be close to President Edgar Chagwa. All I can say is that all of us are just praying. All I can say is that all of us are just saying, Lord, this can only be by you. It can't be by anyone. So indeed, it is a devastating moment for both the family of President Edgar Chagwa, as well as those of us that had the privilege to serve under his leadership.
Chanondo, our condolences to yourselves and the family and the people of Zambia. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much, Channel Africa, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate. We are here for any updates. In case you want any update, we are here to give you that update. And thanks, South Africa. Thanks, Africa. Thanks, SADC region, for mourning with us as Zambians.
Thank you, Chanoda. That is Chanoda Ngwira, the spokesperson for the Kumamwa Development Coalition and a close ally of the former President Edgar Lungu, who passed away yesterday. It is 12:25 Central African Time.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Germany's ambassador to South Africa, Andreas Peschke, has highlighted the strong and growing partnership between the two countries, particularly in the fight against climate change. Now, speaking to Channel Africa on World Environment Day, Ambassador Peschke underscored the importance of climate change adaptation, especially in vulnerable coastal areas facing increasingly severe weather events. He welcomed South Africa's climate strategy and emphasized Germany's commitment to working closely with its strategic partner on environmental and economic fronts. Our Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke with Germany's ambassador to South Africa, Andreas Peschke.
Well, I think it cannot be overestimated. It's very important. Today is World Environment Day, and the protection of our environment is very important, both in South Africa and in Germany. And part of climate change adaptation is really important, as climate change is biting us harder and harder, both in Germany and South Africa. We see it in coastal zones all over the country, devastating floods, drought, and other things. So it's very important to really tackle this issue. So now that South Africa embarked upon a strategy for climate change adaptation in coastal areas, we were happy to cooperate with South Africa on these issues because we have embarked on a similar process in Germany as well. So we found it very helpful to exchange notes and to move forward together, because if we share similar challenges, I think it's also advisable to work together, particularly in a world where everything is interrelated.
And also looking at the importance of the relationship between these two strategic partners, be it in environmental issues, trade, and also bilateral cooperation between South Africa and Germany.
Well, of course, what we're doing here on climate change adaptation is part of the larger picture of our cooperation. I mean, Germany and South Africa are very closely related. So, of course, we have a business relationship. We have many German companies active in South Africa, the automotive. But we also have South African companies active in Germany, also creating jobs. So that is quite fruitful. But then I think we have a very close people-to-people relationship. We have 3 large German international schools in South Africa. We have a large cultural activity in Germany. And then everybody, the world is looking at South Africa right now because of South Africa's G20 presidency. And Germany really wholeheartedly supports the goals of the South African G20 presidency. And we would like to do everything what we can to make it a success.
Going forward, how do you see the relationship between South Africa leading in Africa and Germany going forward, both bilateral and trade and also people-to-people relations?
Well, I think we have just elected a new government in Germany. Our new chancellor spoke with the president last week. So we are establishing now contacts between all our principals. I think the Minister of the Environment is going to meet our Minister of the Environment next week in the margins of the World Ocean Conference. So, the contacts are being established. So on that level, we really want to push hard and push forward. Then I think we have our bilateral forum, which is the Binational Commission, which is our program of action for the next couple of years. We hope it gets together in the second half of the year. And then people to people, we would love to have more South African students, exchange students in Germany. And we will also encourage Germans to come here, not least for tourism. We are the 3rd largest tourism market for South Africa. So we had a big bunch of Germans coming that season, and we are looking forward to many more next season.
But also trade. We need investors from Germany to come to South Africa. Will we see more investment?
That's important point. You're right. So Germany is the 3rd largest trading partner of South Africa. And we are firmly committed to keep that position, that forward position. And we hope that we can mobilize more investment as well. Because I think that business relationship investment is really beneficial for job creation.
That was German ambassador to South Africa, Andreas Peschke, speaking to Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe. It is 12:30 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. We say good afternoon to Chanduko Ligege with our news headlines.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. These are your headlines. Qatar has presented a draft peace proposal to Congo and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels after months of mediation in Doha, and the two sides will consult their leaders before resuming talks. Tens of thousands of secondary school students have sat for state exams in rebel-held Eastern Congo this week, a complicated logistical feat requiring rare cooperation between the government and M23 rebels. And Germany's ambassador to South Africa has reaffirmed his country's commitment to supporting climate resilience. He was speaking during World Environment Commemorations Day and in Pretoria. More news at the top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Chanduko, with our news headlines. We'll say good afternoon to Figile Lingwati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Let's start off with football news this hour. Carlo Ancelotti's reign as Brazil boss started with a lackluster 0-0 draw away at Ecuador in South American World Cup qualifiers. The five-time World Cup winners were unable to break down a resolute Ecuador defense, with Flamengo midfielder Gerson coming closest to breaking the deadlock in Guayaquil. The result leaves Brazil in fourth place in the qualifying group with 22 points after 15 matches. And Olympic silver medalist Khotso Mokoena has been appointed chairperson of the High Performance Commission at the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee, SASCOC. He succeeds former Triathlon South Africa's president, Debbie Alexander. The 40-year-old now holds dual leadership roles, having been re-elected as chairperson of SASCOC Athletes Commission last week. Mokoena says his years of experience have prepared him well for the responsibilities ahead and is passionate about contributing to the advisory committee in his new role.
Then another hat that I'm wearing, I've also been selected as the chairperson of the High Performance Commission, taking over Dr. Debbie Alexandra, who has done an absolutely great work, and I'm looking forward to taking this role to another level, understanding that the good relationships that we have with the national federations through the Athletes Commission, the work I've done there, I've gained so much experience now moving into high performance, which is something that I'm really passionate about.
Although the leadership role as SASCOC is new for the South African athletics legend, he sees it as a natural progression, believing that high performance has always been a way of life.
New field for me, and I'm just looking forward to it, to continue to work closer with the federations, to continue to ensure that all the selection processes are fair for the athletes, right? And that athletes can always come to the high performance to get more information, to be updated, and to also ensure that Team South Africa performs, to ensure that Team South Africa receives the chance that it deserves to perform on the higher stages.
On to rugby news, Anna Tikolo will captain a Springbok women's side with a combined 174 caps in their 2025 Rugby Africa Women's Cup opener against Uganda in Antananarivo on Saturday, with three uncapped players, Patience Mugoni at wing, Faith Chauke, number 8, and Anushka Grunewald, flanker, included in the starting team for the test at Stade Marquis. A further 5 uncapped players have been named on the replacement bench. In a serious show of intent, South Africa will start with 5 backs who represented the country at the previous World Cup in New Zealand, while Nomawethu Mabenge, who scored the team's first try of the tournament against France in the opener match in 2022, will come off the bench in Antananarivo. For good measure, Mabenge was also the leading try scorer in the Madagascar tournament in 2023. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African Perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
As we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
It is 12:36 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our business news up next with Thabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and good afternoon. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa will this evening address the Black Business Council Summit Gala and Awards Dinner in Ekurhuleni in the Gauteng province. The summit will be held under the theme Socio-Economic Transformation and Inclusive Growth in the context of the Government of National Unity, G20 presidency and the change in geopolitical dynamics. The presidency spokesperson Vincent Makwenya.
The President will address the annual Black Business Council Summit Gala and Awards Dinner at the Radisson Hotel and Convention Center in the city of Ekurhuleni. The Black Business Council is hosting the 2025 annual summit under the theme Socio-Economic Transformation and Inclusive Growth in the context of the Government of National Unity, the G20 presidency, and the changing geopolitical dynamics.
South African retailer TFG has reported a 4.6% rise in annual earnings thanks to a rebound in sales in Africa in the second half of the year, store expansion and acquisition of a British chain White Stuff. TFG, which also operates in Australia, said headline earnings per share rose to 0.57 cents in the year ended the 31st of March. Gross profit was up 6.7% to a record $1.62 billion. South African fashion retailer Mr. Price reported a 10.1% increase in full-year earnings, supported by strong second-half performance amid improved sales growth and reduced markdowns. Diluted headline earnings per share, a key profit measure in South Africa, rose to 13 Rand 79 cents, while operating profit grew 8.9% to $327 million in the 52nd week period ended the 29th of March. India's central bank has cut interest rates by more than expected to 5.5%. The bank says it's made the reduction of 0.5% due to the muted inflation. It says there is also a need to boost economic growth amid concerns over the effect of US tariffs. The BBC's Archana Shukla has the details.
It's squarely focused on supporting growth amidst a shaky global economy and trade uncertainties. It is in line with what other major central banks did, which is cutting interest rate to spur domestic investment, domestic growth, domestic spending at a time when India's growth is actually slowing down and there are uncertainties because of looming tariffs and trade disruptions in the global supply chain, and that has squarely been the focus of the Reserve Bank of India.
US jobs growth likely slowed considerably in May as businesses struggled with headwinds from tariff uncertainty, but probably not enough for a cautious Federal Reserve to resume cutting interest rates anytime soon. The Labour Department's closely watched employment report is also expected to show the unemployment rate holding steady at 4.2% for the third straight month and solid wage growth, which should keep the economy afloat for now. Nonetheless, the economy's prospects are dimming, and economists say President Donald Trump's flip-flopping on tariffs has hampered businesses' ability to plan ahead. Let's have a look now at your financial indicators. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 567. In Botswana, 13.25. Kenya, 128 shilling 539. And in Zambia, it's at 26 kwacha 6. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 rubles 61. Russia, 78 rubles 64, India 85 rupees 83, China 71 18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 62. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities markets: gold $3,364, platinum $1,060 per ounce, Brent crude oil is at $65.08 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisola Hoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Tabiso Lohoko with our business news. It is 12:41 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Our Chad has reciprocated the suspending of visas to U.S. citizens after U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he was suspending the visas of 12 countries, with Africa being the worst affected by the travel ban. Now, in a Facebook post in French, Chad's President Mohamed Idris Deby Itno said that his country does not have planes to offer nor billions of dollars to give, but that Chad has its dignity and pride. Now, to unpack this, we are joined on the line by Dr. Benjamin Anyangre Aziginatayeg, the Chief Executive Officer of the Afro-Continental Union Consult. Now, Dr. Aziginatayeg, exactly, just unpack this for us. Did the president see this coming? Did Chad's government see this coming? And what are the reasons behind this ban by the U.S. President Donald Trump?
Well, thank you very much, my sister. Well, nations with their intel on the ground will know very well that this was something possible. And you know, with the history in terms of our relationship with the US, they've always had the upper hand to do whatever they want. They don't respect the Vienna Conventions and do whatever they want. And I want to say this world exists with nations. And the nations have their human beings, citizens, they govern. And so, if you have a committee of nations who are supposed to coexist and respect each other with mutual understanding based on certain protocols, the best thing is if you claim that your national security is under threat, if you claim that people overstay their visas in your sovereign state, based on the rules governing nations, sovereign nations, you have to sit and judge all and come to understanding. You don't just get up and say, look, I'm imposing this or that. Now, the Chad government have said, fine, we don't have planes, 400 million worth of plane, or we don't have monies to give you, but we have our dignity and respect as a sovereign state to protect. And so I am happy with that response. On equal terms, not for any sovereign state dominating the other, which has been the case over centuries, especially affecting African states. Now, in the spirit of solidarity, if African states decide that, look, we are going to also ensure that the statement from the White House on some African states is going to be reversed, because we are also going to implement the same against them. And we are going to convince our citizens not to fly with Delta Air. What will be the outcome? The world will not be a safe place for all of us to stay and be happy.
Now, Dr. Azi Ginatayeg, Somalia has taken a different approach. Now, Somalia has pledged to work with the U.S. to address security issues, a totally different approach to Chad.
Yes. It's all based on what I said, on mutual understanding and respect. The approaches are different. The accusations for why Trump's government has taken that stance do not also necessarily mean all governments should reciprocate in that manner. You look at the internal conditions, but the overall thing is, one nation is not superior than the other. Do we want to say that US citizens in Africa, in one way or the other, have never abused the sovereign status of our states? In the Somalian situation, we know very well that Somalia is not a stable place. It has been bedeviled with so many unrest. Now, this calls for the reason why Kwame Nkrumah and his colleagues preached for a continental union government and African high command. All the commands in African states coming together to form one unit. Somalia issue can be resolved by Africans themselves. Yes, military cooperations with other nations, yes, is something that is accepted. But we have to look within first. If we are strong enough, we can detect the pace.
Now, Doc, some of the reasons, well, one of the reasons that it is believed to be one of the reasons why President Trump reacted or responded this way is the fact that there was an attack in Colorado by an Egyptian national. But Egypt is not on the list of countries that are currently have a travel ban on them. We're talking about countries like Turkmenistan, Venezuela, Burundi, Sierra Leone, Togo, Cuba, Laos, Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Iran. These are just some of the countries that have been prohibited from entering the U.S. with whatever travel visas they have. Now, just looking at the countries that are on this list, it's believed that these are countries that Trump feels want to harm the U.S. And what does this do now going forward? Because we've seen it. We've always seen it. We've always read about it. We've seen it on our television screens where there is one crisis after another in terms of whether it's Iran, back and forth. There's so many issues that the world is facing, especially some of these countries on this list. And Trump seems to believe that these countries want to harm the U.S. Is he right in believing that, or is it just something that, as you say, can be worked through in certain channels?
Interesting. Let me tell you that countries like Cuba, Venezuela, they have had some long-standing misunderstanding with the U.S., and basically it is based on an ideological terrain. The U.S. have tried to topple the Cuban and Venezuelan governments, and even once placed Cuba on the terrorist list. And so, if you look at Iran, it's similar. But fundamentally, what is behind all these actions of the White House is based on the U.S. interest. If the U.S. are serving your interest and they are okay with it, that's fine. But once they look at you as not towing their interests, they will find ways and means to, in one way or the other, try to come after you. My sister, in Africa, the Western type of democracy, which I call American and European type of democracy, is an advanced stage of capitalism. The US conglomerates, aided by the White House, seek their interests first. They look at what they can gain from you, not on equal terms. And so if you look at the variables, it is like an application of an interest on one state to another. That is what is happening.
Now, let's look at the African Union's reaction and response. They're concerned and have called on the U.S. to adopt a more consultative approach. And, what's your take on this? Do you think this is the right approach? Do you feel that it is time for something different to happen? Should the AU be doing this as a representative of the African continent?
Earlier on, I told you about the Vienna Convention and diplomatic missions, and then if nations have issues one another, they try to send their envoys to sit and talk on mutual understanding. Because the world, no nation is an island. The Committee of Nations exists for a purpose. But the dominance of one nation against the other is something worrying, especially African states. We are being seen like second-class sovereign states in the world. And policies are cooked from the White House and some other imperial cities against our states. Now, on the AU, well, the AU, that is the response, that is the appeal they will make, but I think they will go beyond that. Because a continental union government, a purposeful continental union government, will make us stronger. Because nations will come together. We will have one foreign affairs ministry. We will have one interior ministry, or what others call home affairs ministry. We will have so many things in common. And we can then now sit on the strength of the unity to begin to deal with other sovereign states in the world. That is what the African Union should be doing. If you look at the Agenda 2063, the first 10 years implementation plan talked of a federal state of Africa. Who are those to implement it? It's the African Union. This is a document that came from the top for the African people, the grassroots. We haven't heard anything over 10 years within that space. So what is the African Union doing? We are not saying they are not working, but they should be active enough to ensure that things like this will not happen. decisions taken by the African Union are to protect the African citizens. We are equals in the world. I didn't ask God to make me an African, but God saw the need to make me an African, and I'm proud as an African. So the African personality must be protected and worked on. So the African Union, okay, they've said it. Sit with them, let's talk. What will come out of it? It will have been something of weight if we spoke on the basis of a unit, a continental union government. And my sister, but there's one thing I want to make clear. What is happening also, we must look internally. The Western type of democracy introduced in Africa induces bad governance and dysfunctional institutions. You know, when you look, the US, they were saying some of the states do not have adequate capacity to offer something like passports and the rest. But the fact remains that it is an outcome, a product of the democratic system implemented in Africa. If we go according to our own type of democracy, African type of democracy, the neighborliness principles, where we take care of each other, communal system of living, the system will peg institutions to work and be healthy. But the governance system of democratic rule, where we have 4 years created oppositions and sitting governments, in itself produces conflicts.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Azinagina Tayeg, unfortunately, we have run out of time and we are going to leave it there for today. But thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much, my sister, and greetings to your audience. Happy blessed weekend.
Thank you. That is Dr. Benjamin Azigina Tayeg, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Continental Union Consult, joining us on the line.
The EU-African SME Summit. Join more than 200 change makers from June 19 to June 21 at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AFCFTA, the EU's global gateway, and the power of small businesses. It's an opportunity to spark collaboration and unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricasmesummit.eu.
And that's how we come to the end of Africa Update today and for the week. And we say thank you to our team of producers and technical operators. That's Tracy and Katu, as well as Elaine on our social media. And today we focus, just to recap on our big stories. Zambians mourn the loss of the former president Edgar Lungu, who passed away yesterday in South Africa. And also Germany and South Africa's growing partnership in the fight against climate change highlighted, where our reporter Michael Mbewe spoke to the German ambassador in South Africa. So continue with us though on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406-9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. Well, have a good weekend, and we'll do this again on Monday. Our news up next with Chandu Golekeke.
the EU-African SME Summit. Join more than 200 change makers from June 19 to June 21 at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AI.